What up, Schmoedown rockers? So, Schmoedown Spectacular. 5 matches. All of 5 rounds. Mainly because one of those matches was supposed to be scheduled for Orlando, but wound up switching that and what we would have gotten, which would have been the Draft Bowl, out as the opening, as the undercard match for Orlando and this match here. Because of Ben Bateman's own back. Turns out, because of stuff like this, it seems things finally paid off for him, though it seems it may not have paid off for Bibiani. And I feel like since he's once again cutting so darn close, he can almost taste it. And that was basically his chance to be number 1 contender. The finals match, which aside from an actual championship match, is the one and only time it's singles and teams tournament matches, that are the only times where you get 5 rounders, like a championship style match, which is always good, because at that point, you win that, you definitely earn the right to go against and you're definitely fresh coming off of a 5-rounder type of match, going into a championship match. So, which basically can work in the challenging team's favor. They'll have a sense of experience. That allows them to even the playing field, especially when you're going into this spectacular here. And given he's got 3 matches, 3 rounds. Given 3 matches, all 5 rounders, potentially for Bibbs. At this point, honestly, because he has that number 1 contendership back in his pocket, he doesn't have much of anything to lose, but Bateman does, and he's studying really hard, especially even more so after what we saw from the Who's the Boss family match. So Bateman has to, and even more so pressure's on him ever since Guy's retirement announcement after the unfortunate loss for the family against Shazam, who wound up playing later, who we're going to talk about later against Founding Fathers. Those who had heard my predictions in the last match, I'm already going to say it, which that's why I did it then, so it seemed raw, it seemed fresh. And I made sure you knew it was pre-recorded. Because you could tell, so you could also tell that I wasn't bullcrapping you. I actually was fresh off of it, and I wanted to make sure of it, so I didn't spill any beans there because of something that happened in a previous one. So that's why we have what we have here. And I wanted to soak in a little bit of it, and yeah, I understand and see how it can come across as having been underwhelming to some people, but for me, in terms of what I wanted as far as results and what I had predicted, for the most part, kind of told you so. Granted, I would have been much happier if Grace Kelly did beat the Demon, but once you let him have a little bit of a lead, is just, and plus finding out that they decided to just mix the Star Wars and the and integrate them into the one category, it just becomes unfair, because now it just forces Damon to wind up winning the whole thing, winning that Player of the Year thing, which, honest to God, given what we would wind up getting out of Smiths later. But anyways, which is why I'm excited to talk about that. But also the final 2 matches, I'm actually kind of excited about for many reasons. One of which would still somehow make me somewhat question, but not really, because I'm technically judging, as far as that page is concerned, mostly as sort of a subsect of Action Army, technically. So it's, but given how they are more on heels than faces, but had no choice given that he was the only portion of action that was left at the time that we knew, or at least that had any form of representation, I guess you could say, at the Spectacular. But But anyways, which is why once I saw that Shazam had won it, I was a little leery and I was hoping for things. And my God, I'm probably the only one here who has nothing. I get the fact of what happened in the match that led to the results being the underwhelming part, but to me, the results and the overshowered me in greatness. I know what I'm talking about, finally, when it comes to my prediction after having those predictions. But when it came to that, it was a 3-rounder. That's Bibbs. With Bibbs and then the Boss Bateman. Boss wins that match. Goes on to main event. Winner of that match would go on to main event. The night going up against Oyama. And Bateman finally did. He's finally come close to it. And he knocks out Bibbs. He's already fresh off of that. And poor Bibbs also fresh off of that going into a Tames match, which ends up being in the middle of the night. I thought they would save that match for some reason, more as the main thing, but I guess because Kalinowski and Smets, that card was such a big deal because of what happened, given what happened with the previous number one contendership match that happened at the Collision. Yeah. In Collision, they decided that it was probably better to have that as main event number 2, numero dos, than instead of the team titles for some reason. I understood Star Wars being the follow-up match in that regard. That made sense. And plus, at this point, no one was expecting. I'm not surprised. I'm bummed. I mean, it's the one and only match that didn't result in a TKO. But it wasn't. But once again, Damon just had a somewhat perfect, a near perfect game, I'd say. If not a completely perfect game. Which I guess now that they had to lump Star Wars and engage them together, now he's officially going to probably end up winning it, even though I would rather give it to Smets. And you'll understand why when we get to it. 2. Oh my gosh. And then we get to Founding Fathers versus Shazam. The match does manage to at least make it to the championship round. It does start off where it seems like Shazam's in the lead for the most part, but it's not. But it's not like the Founding Fathers weren't doing what they could to give them the run for their money. And it seems both teams had a perfect round 2s, I think, or at least managed to get all their questions right in some capacity, whether it had been multiple choice and whatnot. So, but yeah. I definitely, and plus with the Star Wars, given what has happened with the Star Wars questions, by the way, going back to that match, there's, until Rise of Skywalker comes out, they won't have much of anything for idea topics, I guess. So, which eventually, once that's added in, then we'll have something else, some newer questions added in there. But eventually, once those questions start running their course, eventually it's going to start getting a lot harder there as well. So it's kind of going to be But other than that, wow. I mean, and then, of course, now again, back to Founding Fathers versus Shazam. I wouldn't have been bummed unnecessarily either way, but I kind of had a feel, given what was going on, I was kind of more thinking, my prediction was Founding Fathers would take it, because Kid doesn't have the full experience. Bibbs kind of does, and has been in a championship, but he didn't exactly win that championship. But this is another champ, and twice he's at least Bibbs, no matter what team, has managed to make it to a championship match in the year. Getting the team belts is a different story. He's yet to conquer that, and it seems they potentially can, but wasn't exactly the case. And that's where round 3 came in with the bets. They had both betted 2 points. One didn't get the answer right, the other did, and that's when things seemed like it was more so. Well, that's where things, it seemed, were starting to eventually go more into the Founding Fathers' favor, especially given the time of the speed round, where eventually or especially Roca playing the game of his, for having bronchitis at the game of his life, and the way they opened up with that and how he came out was something. At the very least, I would say. So, and the fact that, and it's, the one thing he has yet to do has been to retain a belt in general. He's always won the belt. He's been a two-time. He's currently now has been both a two-time singles and teams champ at the current moment. Question is, can he finally retain a belt? Well, Merle, who's had 3 championships and at the very least retained once, at the very least, on each reign he's had, you more than likely will have a shot at it. Especially given the way they played the last matchup, when both of them had perfect rounds, which is what the opponent team would have to do. And it seemed that they did, except that they kind of, and they were ahead, but like I said, round 3 can be the game changer, and so was the speed round, where it eventually they've managed to catch up where they needed to switch things up. And then eventually we get to, and then once through that championship round, or at least they get ahead enough to where they finally get ahead by at least for the most part. And unfortunately, for some reason, or at least 4 points at least far enough ahead, that they were able somehow, or at least somehow they did so through the 3rd round, betting round, somehow they must have 3 points or something. I don't know how that managed to work, I guess. Or at least it seemed like things were changing in favor for them with some steals. I'm trying to remember the exact thing, but forgive me on that. But then it seems, I think they weren't able to get the 5-pointer. Might have been able to get the 2. I guess they were able to get the 3 maybe, or if they weren't, then they had to get the 5, and they weren't able to, and it resulted in a TKO. Which, I mean, might as well have been unfortunate, but for Bibbs, it wasn't a great night, but the fact that he was just happy, at that point, he was just happy that he was even able to be involved in Spectacular at all, for as much as he was. And having to get into 2 matches, unfortunately lose, and apparently, the real question is, would Bateman be the first person to win a match, play twice, and win? That all depended on how, given Oyama's last match, he was lucky Snyder wasn't on his A game either, because he did not have a good round 5. That's for sure. That was rough, and you could tell he has an anxiety issues, and he's yet to conquer them, and I don't even know if he ever will, from the way it seems to be. We'll get to that eventually, because the match that I was mostly wanting to have my prediction happen, you're damn right, it's back, bitches. You know what, I got a hood. Well, it's not a hoodie, so screw it. But anyways, all right. Kalinowski versus Smets 2. The Sweet, Sweet Revenge. I expected Smasher to do it. He played his ass off and truly did earn his right to go for that belt. Kalinowski was lucky Rachel was completely off her game when it came to the rest of the rounds. She wasn't on top of things. It was pretty... It's not that she didn't try, but you could tell that she was starting to have some issues and why she needed to, between her and Rachel having to. But it's not like they didn't put up the fight that they needed to show that they tried. It's just a shame that that Shirewolves wound up on its last legs. And this is a whole in that regard, and I hated that Intergeekdom match wound up becoming that downfall, but it just showed Corruption still had a chance, at least to go into the rest of the year. But the moment Corruption lost the belts at Orlando is when the tide shifted. And because I knew there was no way after what happened with Smets' loss, and he proved it at San Diego, despite the fact that sure, Lavic's thing, blah, you could say that all you want, but it's pretty clear to me. And Chandru had a good comeback himself. It's just a shame that he knew Smets, when it came to Smets, it was a buzzsaw, but he was able to put up to that fight, actually forcing my man to earn his right there. And when you have a match like that, there's no way you're not going to try even harder to make sure that what happened the last time you fought against KO. And the weirdest thing is, everything that was promoted from the last time should have further promoted it. He didn't believe he was going to have what happened. He was hoping what happened before would be the same result, but he wasn't expecting it either. Maybe at the time. He was expecting more of a fight. Kalinowski gave it to him. And he beat himself. And he proved that at San Diego that he did. That's what had happened at Collision. And he wound up doing what he always, when he beat Hlavik, he did what he always did. Had always done before. And knocked out. But the thing is, nobody actually expected him to do what he was saying he wanted to do during pre-promo with Collision, but he did it here. And he didn't even expect that because he didn't bother to promote it because he knew better than that. And to everyone else, and the way he promoted himself, he did well. And it also helped in his favor that the power of the spirit of Dollface compels you. Sorry, that's... Anyway. And what do you know? Your power of good intentions, you rewarded. And hardworking, dedication to your studying, and being a badass on the mic, or learning to finally develop as being a badass on the mic. Yes, the one gratification that needed to happen, that I was satisfied with, regardless of what was going to happen in the singles title match, happened. To me, at least. And at least it went to round 4. And Smets, Smets did it. Fucking did it. He fucking did it. Woo! Smets smash KO. He knocked his ass out. In the 4th round, he got the final question. He hit it, got it right, kept any chance of going into round 5 happening. And KO got KO'd. The death, or at least the annihilation of Corruption 1.0, technically, or at least 1.5, I should say, to be fairly honest. I wouldn't go as far as 2.0, because is officially gone. And that leads us to things I will get to later, which leads to Grace and Ken of the official firing of them as managers. Also, for speaking of Intergeekdom, and Smasher tried to, by the way, do his own promotion thing, still trying to be a heel. Didn't work. Did not work. And unfortunately, especially when, you got a lot of Action Army kind of backing you a little bit, and something I'm gonna say at the end of this, involving this later. Also, it turns out Intergeekdom got even more interesting, and so now we know Smets has the belt, and he's gonna have to defend it against Mara at the New York Live event in January, whenever that may be. I'm hoping I can find a loophole way to where I can still see it live and absorb that in. But anyways. Oh my God, yes. Thank you, Smets. Thank you. Freedom! So... and now I can... My page is safe! I hope. Unless Kaiser does something stupid! Because for some reason, Harloff told him to do that something stupid. Because I don't want Civil War on my page! I've seen how it's been in Action Army. I don't want it on my page. Dagnabbit! I'm at least going to have another year of not having to deal with that. Nothing to worry about that. I'm hoping. All depending on how things probably go between him and Mara at the New York Live event. Yeah. And apparently, of course, Mike was going to take it hard, as expected. But what did you expect? You cut it too long of a promo. Of course, it doesn't help when you're kind of having to follow an already long enough promo between Grace and then Ken, and you got to follow that up, and you went even longer than them. I knew Ken was going to know when to cut his because, he's had been in independent circuits in the ring. Grace kind of learned over time, I guess, and plus having been around Ken enough, picked up on a few things. Kalinowski's, not as bad as Burnett. We'll get to that eventually. And then, of course, we have one more match that once again didn't go all the way. And it wound up being kind of a slight repeat of a certain earlier match that this man had already been in. That's right, Ben the Boss Bateman versus Paul Oyama. I'm in those here and there because part of me's been waiting for Ben to finally get his vindication. On the other hand, I also would like to have Oyama prove that he did, and it's unfortunate that he couldn't do it because the seeds finally cracked in, and it seems Kaiser, yes, he was focused on Smets, and yes, it paid off in that regard because he wasn't as worried about Oyama because of how he's been lately, even though he should have been more worried about it after what happened at the live event because you don't miss all your 5-round questions like that. He was just lucky that Snyder was completely off his game then. As I had stated before, and when I talked about that match, I guess check it out and look through my channel. You'll find it somewhere in the uploads. The thing is, it wound up going through round 3. I think it through the betting round. I don't even know if it made it to round 4. If it did, didn't last very long. And yeah, Ben was just on fire. He wasn't going to let up. He had been waiting for long, and plus with his back injury, which honestly kind of the whole incident with that paid off for him because it allowed him to be a little more closer to 100% going into the finals match. And then this match, he beat Bibbs, knocked him out, and apparently did the same exact thing, and he's finally champion. What do you know? With Roca finally getting his chance to retain, Merle doing it, and plus now Merle's going to go in, him and Merle retaining as founding fathers, and then Bateman finally getting the belt, which now means that that Finstock has all the Horsemen in his stable. That the Horsemen finally get the vindication they need. All it took was having Finstock be a manager, and then Bateman being one of your Horsemen. And they became they are now the new legendary 4 Horsemen of the more edgier face of teams. And now, what is left of what was the Horsemen has now become the Finstock Exchange. If the Horsemen are still technically a thing, they will be kind of more of a sub-faction, I guess, at this point. Or at least that's what they're relegated to because of the Finstock Exchange. That's what the name, and of course it makes sense. Stock Exchange, Finstock Exchange, yeah. And money, you know how Finstock is about that kind of shit. Money and bitches, all that. Anyway. Or at least how Gucci, what other iteration of Tom Dagnino it is, that's what you know. especially if you watch Little Bobby and Juice, which I kind of tend to, and it was fun. Anyways, now, and that's kind of what happened with Spectacular. In between cup matches, we got to finally see all 10 managers. Things slightly would alter. The Intergita match was where things was going to alter for what they were going to do. And it all depended on if Kalinowski had won. I was wondering what would happen if he did. I would have been upset, of course, and this shirt would have seen the light of day on this channel again. At least not for a while. And I would have had to deal with a potential civil war, because somebody would have grabbed Kevin Smets, for sure. And now he finally has only one loss against Kalinowski, which he vindicated and got it through getting a Intergeekdom belt. He is now, I believe, 6-1. Yes, 6-1 now. And it seems, I think, Mara's 6-1 or 5-1. Anyways, so that's going to be interesting. Who's going to come out on top in that match come in New York? Kaiser's still going to have the dungeon be the dungeon. That was the way they cut the promos. They started with Jay's group, which is now going to be called Villains and Heroes, mainly so they didn't have to worry about trademark of the Heroes and Villains clothing line that sponsors Collider Live. But anyways, and it makes sense because he's kind of tweenerish lately, it seems. And Mouthy Mercs is going to be Coy Jonder's team. Swag Squad, drip drip, is Winston's. I can definitely see Chandra joining, especially if the whole dance thing. Though he could probably join I could see him joining those three teams for sure. Mostly Coy and them, but I understand if he winds up joining Rockstars, which is Roxy's team. I almost thought it was going to be Bunny Raiders. If it wasn't Rockstars, it was going to be Bunny Raiders. For sure. And then, of course, the dungeon's still the dungeon. MF5 brings back the Fight Club, but the logo has changed in a way that seems heelish, and that's not the big thing. Shannon comes out and she finally announces she's the new manager for them. But before that, we finally found out who the actual 10th manager is in the form of Sam Levine through The Usual Suspects, because apparently that he has a podcast on it, which is also a reference to, I believe, the movie itself that Kevin Spacey is in, that has also been used consistently on a certain meme. The call to action has been used to death, and the action will be used to death, involving Kalinowski. We'll use it later. And yes, thank you. It's like, and dungeon's still the dungeon. It's going to be nice. I can't wait to see the new pictures once the draft is done. Yay. Or at least once they finally can be allowed to reveal it. So, anyways, I'm trying to think. There is something else. Yes, Coy Genre, there was that. Swag Squad, Drip, I said Villains, Heroes. Five comes back. Corruption's still around, or at least 2.0, where it is now Shannon running things, and it seems, I guess, she's going to try to at least keep Kalinowski at the very least. Or at least that's what she's going to try to. Or if not, then it's pointless to call it Corruption. If Kalinowski's not in it anyway, so it just seems silly. I'm just saying. And the 5 seems to have turned to complete heel, and it becomes more clear when she brings out Emma Fife as advisor. Everyone was on heel watch for her in the same way everyone was for Kalinowski, which is why this whole thing seems sort of meta. I'm bummed about it. I get this decision, but here's the thing. Every faction that Grace has somehow joined, they've always been given, through her joining, in some way, a kiss of death. What's the point of Fight Club coming back? If you're gonna wind up, may as well, not so much the heel turn, so much as it was just bringing Grace in and just giving it the kiss and making it, once again, like what sort of happened with Corruption, at least up to 1.5. Happened with Corruption to an extent, and what had become of the Lion's Den. The Lioness seems to have completely feed off of the power of it, and just, the real question is, is Fife the counterbalance? Will things finally be that way for the Fife Club? And if this is the case, which I could see because of this Crimson Fury moving over from Corruption to Fight Club through this, for sure. A couple could, but more than likely somehow Roxy's going to want to try to keep them together. And I think maybe even Fife might consider it. Given those two now together, it will be interesting to have them together, but it would make no sense because he's not really a heel. He's maybe an edgy face, but not really a heel. If he is, he's polished heel. We'll go with that, which is a term we should start using from here on out. I don't know if it's a wrestling thing or not. But anyways, and then of course we get the Burning Druids, and then a cutscene. Guy announces his retirement in the finals, and then all of a sudden, finally say, Guy is back. He finally decided to, him and Drew, he decided to talk to him and Drew, I'm coming back. I'm going to, we are no longer Guy decides to basically tell him through the family no longer requires your services. We're not going to be part of what you're selling anymore. And we're going to find someone else to do it. I'd like them to go in the dungeon. You know, give me a reason to be Team Guy. Even though I've been more on the Bateman side a little bit in places, I've liked Guy. I don't want Sopak to be mad at me, but at least I'm Team Mama Guy, if I'm not always Team Guy. Can we say that? Is that okay, Sopak? Is that okay? Thank you. I appreciate that. If so, thank you. I appreciate that. Anyways, yes, I loved what we got out of Spectacular. At least my end results were something I was hoping for. I was excited. I'm like, get the shirt out! You know, when it came to the Smets thing, it was nice. They tried cutting their things, and eventually Shazam wants to still stay together. They're one of the teams that are safe. Who's the boss is still technically safe, and now they are fully safe. Spin Stock Exchange is already stacked. I don't know who's the steal going to be for number 5, because he won that manager bowl, that draft bowl or whatever. Kaiser, poor Kaiser, was able to at least have a good enough. The thing that mattered was being able to keep Smets for me, so I'm happy with that. The core foundation of the dungeon, the main 2 core foundations of Kaiser and Smets, will hopefully still be together unless Kaiser does something stupid and lets Smets go. Don't do it! Don't! I don't want Civil War in my page. At least not for another year. No, knowing my luck, it's probably 6 months, but not for another year. Anyways, everything was cool. I enjoyed, and then, you know, Guy decided it was heat of the moment. Family's still going to stick together. They're just not going to go with Drew, and they're just going to go with whoever picks them up, since they're now technically free agents. And apparently, I guess Corruption technically is, even though by standards of Shannon, they'll probably have her as their manager, and it seems that was what was going. Which didn't exactly go over well when she had to pick up the scraps anyway, but it turns out when she was there, I don't know. I don't think she used so much because of that. It's just Grace's involvement in certain factions is. And they barely did much anything. Neither did, aside from the 1 month, which wasn't much anything either. Aside from what led to the draft, which I think was really wanted to be more Harloff's idea. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, hearing my thoughts. Zoe, and what you guys think of your thoughts on maybe your experiences for those who actually got to go there the day of and that weekend of with the Schmoedown Expo and everything. Leave a comment below. Let me know. Let me know if I missed anything. As always, and as always, guys, keep it random, keep it real, keep it rocking. Also, Facebook page, check my Facebook page there. Check out my Facebook page. Link in the description. Like and follow me there. Also, hit the subscribe button, click the notification bell here. Rock that like button with the rest of you must. As always, guys, keep it. Once again, this time, as always, keep it random, keep it real, keep it rocking. Also, follow me in the other page too. If you smell what the movie trivia Schmoedown and Schmoedown Rocks is cooking. And what we're cooking is flesh. I'm Mr. Sam Jones.